what if we could prove the binding problem to be unsolvable by simply observing how a sophisticated DNN responds to the Ebbinghaus illusion?
Great question, but first of all, what is the binding problem, or the Ebbinghaus illusion, or a DNN? More importantly, why should we even care?
Our job here is to answer all these questions, with the hope that we add a fresh perspective on an ongoing debate about the architecture of the mind.
So let's get you up to speed. The binding problem asks a simple question. How does the brain bind all cognitive processes to form one unified, coherent conscious experience?
The Ebbinghaus illusion is an image with two identical shapes, A and B, with A surrounded by larger context shapes and B surrounded by smaller ones. The illusion demonstrates the difference between two proposed methods of perception. One, where you observe and are asked to compare, leading to an incorrect response that B is larger than A, and another, where you observe and are asked to grasp A and B, leading to identical grasp diameters. Your vision for action is left unfooled despite your conscious experience of two different sizes.
Finally, a DNN, or deep neural network, is a machine learning model which learns and adapts cognitively, like a human would, by mimicking the neurons of a human brain with layers of connecting nodes. For our purposes, a DNN will be based on Maximov's designing and training of a model whose objective was to understand and replicate human perception of optical illusions.
All right, so let's combine these concepts together and propose a thought experiment that helps us answer our initial question. First, imagine there's a DNN model with a camera, a speaker for reporting observations, and a robot arm. After being trained to succeed on perceptual tasks in a human-like way, the DNN observes the Ebbinghaus illusion. When asked to identify the sizes of the internal circles, A and B, assume that the DNN shows the classic human-like response, an inaccurate verbal report, but an accurate grasp diameter. Then, this specific pattern of responses persists as a trend across many retrainings of the DNN.
What would the implications be of these results?
We propose an argument that uses the conditions of our thought experiment as premises and comes to the conclusion that there is no solution to the binding problem.
We begin our argument by considering the classical sandwich model of a cognitive system. An agent controls how it behaves, its output, in an environment. So if there is something contradictory in the output of a system, it is logical to conclude that one agent cannot be behind both contradictory elements. In our thought experiment, this is precisely what occurs. The DNN's response to the Ebbinghaus illusion represents an internal inconsistency in perception between two visual streams, implying that its perception is governed by a collection of at least two disparate agents. Furthermore, this has developed repeatedly as a result of evolutionary training on perceptual tasks. Given that evolution generally selects adaptive traits, this implies that multi-agent perception is the best suited trait for the DNN to achieve perceptual success.
If a trait is successful for a DNN, would it also be successful for human-like cognitive systems in general? In the case of having divided perceptual processes, we argue yes. The type of DNN model we specified in our experiment acquires this trait because it's acting like a human. So, for this trait, any other human-like system would closely resemble this DNN in the same way they closely resemble a human.
Since having perception governed by disparate agents is the best suited trait for perception, we argue that the design of any human-like cognitive system must include these traits. After all, developing successful adaptive traits is required to reach the level of sophistication to qualify as a human-like cognitive system.
So, in the world of our thought experiment, we now have that sophisticated cognitive systems have perception governed by disparate agents. Even this one process having independent agents ensures that there are, in fact, disparate agents in the overall system. Thus, we've determined that there is no one centralized unit controlling everything. In other words, if even one process is broken up, as we have shown, then there is no common binding denominator that divides through everything. In this thought experiment, there is no solution to the binding problem.
This conclusion has a number of implications for future research. The first and most obvious is that this thought experiment could possibly become a real experiment, and our argument may stand in the real world. Even if it doesn't, however, The demonstration of our novel methodology using DNNs to examine trends in cognitive development could be useful when applied to other cognitive processes from memory to executive function to consciousness and so forth.
We hope that this presentation has raised questions for you about how the mind is made up, how it may not be as unified as it seems, and about gaining insight into cognition through new methods of studying artificial intelligence.